Everybody, coming live today with Dan Rels with the SimpleGrowth coaching team. Myself, Mike Callahan, our other person that usually joins us on these, Aaron Suttonfield, was actually unable to join us. He's live actually at a lawn care company currently, helping them walk through some of the stuff we're actually talking about here on this Facebook. But Dan, if people haven't met you, obviously I'll have you introduce yourself, but when I met Dan was probably 8 or 9 years ago, and Dan and the content he brings to the SimpleGrowth coaching team was instrumental in my lawn care business. So about 12 months, maybe 13 months ago, we formed the SimpleGrowth coaching with our Scale Plus and Masterminds, and the things that I learned that helped me really turn some things around the culture and the 6 areas of my main part of my business that really need to be dialed in. Dan was able to come in as an 8-figure business expert, not just 7-figure, but 8-figure. So it really was my kind of purpose now to be able to go out and bring the knowledge that Dan used in my company to everyone else out here in the lawn care and landscape industry. So just want to put some background to this because we're just not going out and doing this. We've been doing it over 12 to 13 months. Dan, you've been doing it for a long time. I'll let you get into that. But this is something not that we're just like selling to try to make money on. This is something I actually used in my business, made a huge impact. And really, I just feel like it's my duty to actually be able to get this out to all the lawn care companies in the industry, US and Canada for sure. So Dan, without any further delay, if you want to give a little background and how you ended up in this crazy lawn care industry with me.
Long story. I'll make it really short. I love, not inappropriate way. Like Mike was trying to get me to be inappropriate, but I love entrepreneurs. I just love the spirit of entrepreneurship and the spirit of business ownership, where it's like, I'm going to go take on the world and I'm going to try to win, and everyone else be damned right. It's like, I'm going to go figure it out. And I love that energy. And for the past 10 years, I've been really lucky to be able to coach hundreds and hundreds of small business owners, especially those who are at $1 million in revenue and trying to scale up to 10 million. And the truth is that most business owners who are at that phase, or even before, like even if you're like $250,000 or $500,000 a year, like if you're just getting started on this entrepreneurial journey, like most people who are in those seats aren't technicians. I don't know if you are, like, they're technicians, not business, like MBAs, right? And so if you haven't had like business training, or you haven't learned some of the fundamentals of business, like you can be really, really good at your craft and still struggle to grow and scale up a business. And so I feel a lot of empathy for those guys and gals who are trying to make it and just duct tape and baling wire. And we're trying to bring really like high level business coaching to that group. And we watch it's just amazing how businesses sprout up as a result of that. My number one favorite metric, Mike, you didn't ask me about this, but my number one favorite metric just popped in my head. My number one favorite metric is cell phone free vacation days. Because I love businesses that scale to a level and scale in a way that allows the business owner to have the freedom that they started to pursue in the first place. And so our goal is to create businesses that have cell phone free vacation days. And that's like the ultimate metric, because it means your business is humming and running in an awesome way and allows you to, one, have enough revenue to take a vacation, and two, have the freedom and team that you need that allows you to go just enjoy the freedom that entrepreneurs deserve.
Dan, I'm glad you mentioned that. So crazy thing, we haven't talked about this beforehand, but literally one of the first things I did after going through this process is we were in the Dominican Republic, and they got the little safe in the hotel closet. I actually took my cell phone and put it in there. Had my wife, Sarah, put the code in there and said, hey, if there's an emergency, if the world's on fire, you could call her cell phone or call the hotel. But I'll tell you what, that cell phone never, ever left that case. And I never got a phone call, and things were just as good, if not probably a little bit better than they were when I was there. Because sometimes as business owners, we like to get in there and micromanage and become that bottleneck. And really what's been really fun is watching this journey of 60, 70 plus companies now in the last 12 to 13 months go through these transitions. A lot of them coming in and having that grind mentality of, where Gary Vee and a lot of these people are talking about, grind, work 70, 80 hours a week, and you can just grind through it. And the truth is, Dan, you probably can grind through it to a certain point, but it's not sustainable.
And in some ways you kind of have to grind. There's a little period where grind is part of the game. But we don't want to live in grind. We don't want to stay in grind. We don't want to be there forever, because the truth is that usually those guys who are grinding aren't the same guys who are building scalable systems and up-leveling and training people and empowering their people to really grow things. And so like the grind works for a period, but there comes a moment where you have to abandon the grind mentality only, and you have to blend it with strategy and just smart business sense, making sure you're making good business decisions. And that allows you really to scale up.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, you got to put the work in, but at some point, it just is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And it's just not a good look.
And by the way,
balance.
I love that grind. I love that energy and that vibe. And if you're a grinder, like deepest respect and props to you. Like you couldn't have gotten the business to where it is today without that grind energy. What happens though is that when we're only grinding and just struggling, we end up becoming the bottleneck in our business, and we end up letting work be the way we get out of problems rather than smart business decisions that allow us to get out of problems. And so when we watch the CEOs I admire most in the lawn care space are the CEOs who actually are spending the least amount of time grinding, who are like, I'm spending 4 or 5 or 6 hours a week in my business, and it's producing $2 million or $3 million of revenue a year. Like, it's like, those are the guys I really admire because they've learned how to build a scalable business.
Yeah, and that kind of walks us into the first area that we traditionally look at when we look at a business, is really the owner's time. We kind of call that step one. And traditionally we look at it, Dan, and we should say, hey, you should have at least 4 hours set aside a week. You can actually work on the business, not in it, as Michael Gerber would say. So I don't know if you want to elaborate kind of time management, how that plays into this.
Let me zoom out a little bit, because we got really intentional. Like it was Mike and I and Aaron Suttonfield. We got together and we said, all right, if I were Dave Ramsey trying to describe the baby steps to go from I have no time and no money in my business, I'm a business owner and I just feel like I'm drowning. And if we were to start there, we were to say, all right, what are the baby steps to get out and get to a point where you're at $1 million, and then eventually to a $10 million lawn care company? Like, what are the fundamental steps, the practical, what do I do first? What's step one? And step one that we feel like is really important is the business owner has to gain control over their calendar enough to where they have at least 4 hours a week to work, as Michael Gerber would say, on their business and not in their business. Because we know, like, if you're like so many business owners I know, like I'm shocked you're listening right now, because you have so much going on that it becomes overwhelming. And if you can't break away enough to start, like if the boat is sinking, you have to find at least a little bit of time to stop bailing and start filling holes in the boat. And so step one is we'll find some time. We're going to carve out and block time, usually in at least 2 hour blocks, 1 4 hour block or 2 2 hour blocks. And you're going to say, hey, we are going to block this time. It's going to be, turn off the cell phone. I'm going to like lock myself in a closet. And I'm just going to be working on the business, on plugging the holes that are causing this boat to feel sometimes like it's sinking.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different tactics that we go in there, how to actually manage your calendar. And I know as an entrepreneur, like even at 5 years of college, no one taught me these simple skill sets. It's not like it's complete rocket science, but man, when it's put together in a simple framework, and it's easily digested and implemented in little steps, it really just takes the weight off a business owner's shoulders. At least it did mine. So these are the things we're diving into. And then kind of back into that time frame thing we're talking about, Dan. Step number 2, we look at finances. And that is, I think, one of the most interesting things when we do setups on different softwares such as Service Autopilot or Copilot CRM. A lot of times business owners will get in there, and what we find is on the outside, it's a very successful business financially, we think, but when we get in there, the business owner is running in the dark. They don't have an understanding of their financial numbers, and they don't really understand what cadence should be happening in their bookkeeping, how to keep things reconciled. So by the 10th or the 15th of the next month, at a bare minimum, they can actually take a look at those financials that are clean in a setup chart of accounts. And then I guess some of the scary things, Dan, is, we had a gentleman running $150,000 to $160,000, for lack of a better terms, yacht out of his business. And he was wondering why his business profit was so low. And I was like, hey, so-and-so, actually you're doing pretty good, but you got this freaking boat, another $10,000 for the slip tied into your business expenses. So you really need to, in my opinion, and Dan, I'm sure you're going to elaborate, is we need to be able to handle the business and somewhat of the personal finances and make sure the personal house is in order too, and how they can commingle and work together in parallel.
At the beginning, right? It's all sort of one cash flow coming into our lives, and we have to learn how to separate those out. We have to make sure that we're not trying to pay an elaborate salary to a CEO, to an owner that we can't yet afford as a business. And so it is a part of our personal finances, make sure our finances are in order. Because there is going to come a day where we're going to have lots of extra for the owners, but not if we are just barely getting by as a business today. So we have to figure out our personal finances. And what we come to find is, I was chatting with Aaron the other day. He's our head coach, and he's awesome, man. He is the poster child for what we hope to build. And Aaron runs a really successful lawn care company. But one of the things he kept discovering is he goes, I feel a little bit like I'm a fractional CEO when I'm sitting across from people and we're chatting about the business. And if you've never been a CEO before, that's a new role. And just like Tiger Woods has a golf coach, sometimes it's helpful to have someone sitting across and looking at your books. And it's fundamental things that we want to dive in and make sure you have straightened out. Because we'll go into a business. We went into a business the other day, and this woman was awesome, super cool, hardworking, smart. Her and her husband were running this lawn care company together. But when we opened up her books, we came to find out that her actual margin on her profit margin was like 1%, and sometimes negative 0.5%. And so there was something wrong with the numbers, the model of her business. She was either not charging enough. She was either spending too much in different areas. She was maybe so there was something wrong with the numbers. And so we helped her get that sorted out. And when you get that sorted out, all of a sudden now I understand, all right, I need to increase my efficiency a little here, and I need to charge a little bit more over here. And she was able to go from a 1% margin to a 15% margin or a 20% margin in the business. Because we don't want to scale a business that's making 1% or making negative 1%. We don't want to scale negative 1%. So we want to make sure that those numbers are clean and tight, and that the business model will bear the weight of a growth. And that's all about the numbers.
Yeah, at a bare minimum, just to roll out with those trucks, you got to be doing, in my opinion, you should be doing at least double-digit net margins, bottom line to there. And I think one of the things that kind of
at least, right? How sad that she had made. I want to say she was at $1 million or near $1 million, and had made 2% of that. That was all her work amounted to 2% of $1 million. Now that's still a lot of money for me, at least when I was a kid. But man, there's so much more. 2 and 20, she could 10x. She's going to 10x her profits just because we sat down together and we got those numbers right. And so if you're not a numbers person, that's not your expertise. Or even if you're I'm pretty sure they're right, it's good to have someone, a fractional CEO, sit across from you and kind of give it a look.
Yeah, just a little confidence, and just to make sure everything's tightened up. And if you've never looked at those numbers and never been taught, which in the early days I wasn't either, we had to go out and get that education, but it paid big dividends. And I see one of the things that right now is very popular with a lot of people starting businesses, or even really, 15, 20 years in business now, they're going out and trying to do everything and be everything. And what I mean by that is we see this a lot of times as we're working knee to knee with hundreds of businesses every year, setting up their software, their job costing, their automations. They're providing, $1 million, $1.5 million business. They're providing 20 or 30 different types of services. And it's the chaos of a non-simple business. So as we're growing to scale a business, we want to go up with 1 or 2, maybe 3 core services that are scalable. And then eventually we can spread out amongst that once we get a little bit bigger and cross-sell into that database. But one of the things we look at, Dan, is how do we create a simple business and simple service offering?
Yeah. So step 1 is time. Step 2 is finances. And step 3 is making sure that the model itself is really simple. It's hard to grow a business no matter what. It's really hard to grow a complex or convoluted business. And what I mean by complex or convoluted is simply this, that we have multiple product streams selling into multiple markets. I mean, different types of people are buying our products. I'm doing commercial, I'm doing residential, I'm doing
government. I mean, it's
government. I'm doing, and then not only am I doing all of that, which is complex on its own, but I'm also trying to do different services with them. I'm doing convert, I'm doing design build, I'm doing cleanups, like I'm doing all of this stuff. And as a result of that, I feel spread really thin. And the truth is you are, because it's really wide and we can't go very deep. And the systems get really complex and convoluted. And so one of the processes that we want to take you through is making sure that we're spending time on the most profitable things that take the least amount of time, and that we are going deep in those areas so that we're seeing really great results from those areas. Because like if you're listening and you're like your CEO, there are some parts of your business that you go, yeah, I know we're kind of like just breaking even on that stuff.
And you might absolutely just hate it. So a good example, not
Yeah.
that there's great money to be made in design build, but traditionally most businesses with design build, a good portion of that design build requires the business owner to be in it in a very integral piece of it, almost babysitting it, or they haven't been able to delegate a lot of that because it's so complex. And that's where those cell phone free vacations actually happen, because you're getting calls on stuff that technically you've created such a complex service that you have to be there for it to succeed. And that's the scary thing.
And don't get me wrong, you could have a simple design build business.
Yep.
But and you may even see some bigger companies that have like a lot of different services, and that works because they have really high paid managers, high paid leaders that are running divisions of a company. But when you're little, you only get one division. You don't get 12 divisions unless you can somehow afford 12 awesome. Maybe you have like 11 brothers and all the brothers are awesome and they're all going to run their own division. All right, I can buy it, but it's really hard to do if it's just one guy or just one couple that is trying to run a business. And so step 3, we're just going to try to help you simplify the business, make sure we're really focused on keying on the simplest way to get things done, the simplest way to sell things, the simplest way. We're just trying to make it super easy and get to the cash as quick as we can.
I was going to say step 4, Dan, now that we've got this simple business in place, we got some cash flow, we got some time. Biggest issue right now in any service business, especially lawn care and landscape, is hiring the key people. Like, how do we go out and figure that out? And that's something that you've really helped master and actually rinse and repeat systems for really key hire acquisition.
Yeah, it's interesting. I go across the country. This is a major complaint from lawn care companies across the board that I've talked to, but not all of the lawn cares companies I've talked to. Meaning, it's not a universal problem because there is a way of doing it that works and is predictable. And the next thing you know, you have a flow of people coming in, and you're retaining them and onboarding them well. And so I could, like, honestly, I know we don't have enough time for all this, but I could talk for 2 hours on how to build a killer onboarding and hiring process that allows you to feel like you're picking, that you're Harvard and not the community college. You know what I mean? So you're the one who's getting all these people coming to you, and you're going, oh, out of all of these people, I'm going to choose you, rather than the other way around, where it feels like, well, I have to just accept everyone if I'm going to fill the seats. And you're kind of in the 2 feet in a heartbeat style of hiring, where it's like, hey, if you're willing to go out and hold this machine and do the work, I'm hiring you. And as you know, that employee turnover, especially early on as a business owner, is extremely painful and extremely costly. They've said, and I don't know, I've heard various numbers, but something to the tune of each time you lose an employee and have to replace that employee, the cost is something like, was it 1 times their salary, like their annual salary, what it would cost?
I've seen it probably in my business almost 2 times, because if you're not making those decisions, the damage they're causing, the no show, no call issues with your client. So it's not just the retraining, but it's the ancillary things of damaged property, morale, and a lot of your real key employees now are feeling like you're not respecting them because you're letting these people with literally a heartbeat and 2 feet continue to go in and break the rules. So it's, if you really compounded the whole thing, the numbers really, it's astronomical.
It's monstrous. And if you've been in business owner very long, you know the pain of a bad hire. And so one of the things we want to coach you through is this process of how do you hire efficiently and effectively. And if I were to give just one bit of advice out of the 2 hours or 3 hours I want to talk to you about it, the one bit of advice is simply this: hire slow. And that's going to feel really difficult in the moment where there's a lot of work to do. And I don't feel like I have time to wait to put someone in that seat, but hire slow and fire fast. Meaning, as soon as someone is not fitting, not working, that you pull the trigger and you're moving on to the next person, so that you're filling your team with people who are a great fit by way of their performance and a great fit by way of their culture.
Love it. So now we've got the time, we've got the finances, we've got a simple business that's ready to scale and be able to sell simple services. Got the people to perform the work, Dan. Next step is literally putting the rocket fuel in the rocket and going out and building a repeatable client acquisition model. And there's a couple pieces that we tackle in that part. But once again, we've got this machine running. The sales process and client acquisition process should really just be really a non-emotional math game that does not revolve around the business owner selling.
Yeah, the really sad part that I've bumped into, and I don't know why, but it feels like, particularly in the lawn care industry, that there are a lot of people spending a lot of money on marketing that isn't producing results. We've been hunting and working, and we've dialed in and found a couple of companies that really support lawn care and service businesses in really powerful ways that produce predictable results. The current world, especially with online marketing, if we just talked about the online marketing, it should become, over time. Now it's going to take some time, but over time it should be very predictable. You should know exactly what you're going to get, and you should be able to say, I'm going to spend $100, and I know, put it in the box, and out the other end is going to come $1,000. And I just know every time I put that $100 in, we're going to get $1,000 out. And so we want to build a predictable enough acquisition machine that we know if we're going to put money in, we're going to get that money out. And there are a lot of different strategies and techniques and tactics. That's why, again, sitting across from a fractional CEO, so to speak, and to say, all right, out of all of the tactics we want to do, where do we start? And what's the first thing that we want to do? I was chatting with a really good friend of mine who's a talented marketer in the services industry. And I said, what's first? And she said, really easy. It's you're just getting your Google certified, a local business certified. And to go get local Google certified is really easy and really effective to produce the highest result fastest. And so those are the kinds of things we want to get you to, are what are the fastest things you can do to produce predictable results.
Awesome. And now that we've got this thing, the business is getting to a size now where the business owners hiring people they don't know, and these people they don't know are probably hiring people they don't know. And it's going to get to a point when we get to that 7-figure mark and beyond now, that we've got to actually build a leadership model and a leadership team and get crystal clear about that purpose and some core values. And it was interesting, Dan, when I first met you, I basically had become an absentee owner in the business. Really wasn't working that much in the business. But when I got back into the office, the gentleman who was running the business blew out his Achilles tendon. So I kind of had to hop back into the role. And as I got back into that business, I looked at, man, we don't have a culture. Like, there's nothing there. But really, come to find out, we actually had a culture. It was a culture that it evolved out of the guy running the business, and it really wasn't the culture that I wanted to have within that business. So we went out and found Dan and really got really clear on how to create a purpose and mission and vision and values, and then how to actually create a plan annually and quarterly to be on track and actually get that business to hum. And then when everybody was kind of rowing in the right direction, magic happened. But then it got to a certain point where literally I had to create mini leaders underneath me that basically carry that same strategy and vision of the company. So Dan, I don't know if you want to talk about this. This is really, this was a pivotal part of my business. And this was so important to me that I was like, man, I've got to bring this experience to the lawn care industry, because it not only changed my life, but it changed everybody else within the organization. And now that we've been doing this in the lawn care industry, specifically in the masterminds group, for about 13 months now, to see that journey in all the companies and how these business owners have become proper CEOs and gotten really clear. And the thing I always hear is clarity. They're really clear about the business and where they stand, what they stand for, and how they actually execute, and how they actually go out to hire, fire, and train to those core values that you were kind of alluding to in step number 3.
Yeah. If you haven't experienced this yet, as you go through these steps and as you put each building block in place, you're going to come to a moment where the business starts to grow fast. And maybe some of you, the business grew fast without these steps in place, because sometimes it does. Sometimes it's you hang up your sign and people are flocking and you just are trying to keep it all together. And in order for as the business accelerates in its growth, you have to be able to make more decisions faster. That makes sense, right? So there are more problems, there are more questions, there are more challenges, and we have to be able to make the rate of our decision making has to accelerate. And there's a reason, like there's something we call the $1 million plateau. I think in lawn care it might be like the $1.5 million plateau or somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But you get to the point where the business owner, if they're the only real decision maker in the business, they just can't physically keep up with the pace of decision making that's required. And it will feel like after a while that they're just drowning in decisions that they have to make and problems they have to solve. And that's the moment where you have to transition from business owner, entrepreneur into CEO, leader of leaders.
And Dan, it would be, to put it in perspective, it's not even business owner. It's full-time babysitter, cat herder, firefighter, surrounded by absolute chaos. So I got to put in perspective, because I've lived this now in multiple 7-figure businesses I've started up. And I will tell you, the second or third time around is significantly easier when these things are in place. But the first time in the lawn care company, I didn't know any better. I just thought that this was normal and this is the way it operated. Man, when we met you and the team and you guys, I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to make every decision. I don't have to fight every fire.
Every day we wake up and you're just ready to enter the boxing match and you're just getting pounded with one thing after the other. And like, it's so resilient. This is the amazing part. This is why I think entrepreneurs are the coolest people ever, is because they're so resilient that they're bouncing back again and again and getting punched and figured and they're like, all right, let's go again. Like they're Rocky Balboa, man. And so, so there's going to come a time where you're going to have to lead a group of leaders and we're all making decisions together. And all of those decisions are in harmony because they are part of a shared vision. And so if I'm sitting across from a CEO and they're at this phase, I'm saying, all right, we have to get really crystal clear on your vision. And vision for me, it's Jim borrowing it from Jim Collins. There are 3 elements of vision. The first one is purpose. Why are we doing what we're doing? The why is like at the core center of how we operate as a business. And it allows people to make a decision understanding that. So if our business is Simple Growth, our purpose is to help business owners take their life back from their business, get their life back from their business. And so if Mike's not around, we're in separate rooms, we can make similar decisions because we both know, hey, what's going to help this business owner get their life back? And that's why we do all of this. This is why we're giving away free content. It's like, we want to help business owners get their life back from their business. And so I know that I can make a decision in harmony with that, and I'm going to be in harmony with every other leader. The second piece is that we want to create a mission, which is a 3-year strategic objective. This is a clear understanding of what we're trying to do right now, what mountain we're trying to climb right now. And then the third element that we're trying to get clear on is a set of core values of how we're going to operate, what our attributes, characteristics, and behaviors will be when we're in different rooms. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but if you ever walk by one of your employees and you kind of cringe with something they said or did, and you go, "Ooh, that's not how I would do that." Oh, and it just makes you skin crawl. And what we got to do in order to cure that throughout the organization is we got to deeply communicate and have all of our employees drink the Kool-Aid of the values to where they're operating in a similar way to the way the business owner would operate if they were in their seat. So again, our goal is to have this harmonious decision-making organism. It's making decisions all together in similar ways. And the way we do that is that they're operating with a shared purpose, a shared set of values, and that they have a shared understanding of what we're trying to accomplish together right now. What's our 3-year strategic objective? And so, for example, I'll give you a lawn care example. So my buddy Aaron, I'm pretty sure you'll be okay if I share this, but he said his purpose is to save lawns and elevate people. So every time any of their employees go out, they all have that tattooed on their minds. Their goal is to save lawns and elevate people. So each interaction they have elevates people. What's the outcome of that? Well, his attrition rate just drops and drops and drops. So I think they're like 15% right now, like just drops and drops and drops on their attrition rate because all of their employees have that on their hearts. They have a set of core values. I can't recite all of their core values. They have a set of core values that all of their employees have memorized. Like literally every employee in the company has memorized their core values, and there are 7 core values. And then the last, they have a mission, which is to really focus in and dial in this part of their business and scale up their acquisition model. And it's very concrete and specific. It includes very specific mission goals like revenue numbers, client acquisition numbers. So they're very clear across the board. Every employee in their company have understanding and clarity around that. And that allows Aaron, again, to step away from the business and know that the decisions that are happening in this business are going to be in harmony with this overall vision. And so that's what we really spend time with. If you're on a rocket ship of business right now and it is flying, and you do not have clarity, or you do not have, your leadership team is not in harmony around a clear vision of where we're going, be prepared to bump into things and to have pain as a result of that, because people are going to be making decisions that are just a little off track. And when you're going fast, that 1 degree difference turns into a big chasm really fast. And so we have to really be committed leaders around clarity of vision.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, Dan. And if anybody's watching this, because I know at first I was a little skeptical. I'm like, well, how is this going to work in the field? Like, how does that work with our crew leaders, our technicians? And the biggest thing I hear, especially working with hundreds of businesses each year, is how do I get these guys or girls to actually be accountable? How do I get them to actually do just the bare minimum, what they should be doing in their role? When we actually dive in with some methodology we call Big Three. And it literally creates clarity once again throughout the organization. And if you can only do 3 things in your position, these are the 3 things that are driving towards that actual mission. So it's not just the people in your office. It's right down from your technicians with running weed whackers or blowers, your mechanic, your team leaders, and right up, everybody's on the same page. And when that happens, it's absolute magic. So, one of the industry consultants came up to me. We actually start to institute this at Callahan's Lawn Care. He basically said, Mike, you're crazy. The only thing that would motivate the guys and girls on your team is a team picnic, some hot dogs, hamburgers, maybe a couple cold beers at the end of the day once a month. Yeah, that's great. But honestly, I'm here to tell you that I got to completely disagree with that methodology or that feeling, because now I've seen it in 3 different organizations that I've owned and been a part of. And it really goes right down to the person answering the phone, the person taken out of the garbage of the office, or the technicians. So everybody, no matter their position, their pay rate, will buy into this if we hire correctly through this methodology. And all the headaches of the past, 99% of them, at least, you're still going to have some headaches in any business, but it gets really, really good. And everybody's now trying to help you with any of those little headaches that pop up, and you're clear and you're all going in the same direction. So Dan, I can't thank you enough, because honestly, that was one thing that I invested a lot of faith, because here I had some of these industry professionals saying, you know what, you can't do that with field staff. You can't do that with your laborers, maybe your office. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. And we've got close to 100 people now in the group that have recognized the same exact thing and heard some of the same advice in the different industry events, and that you can't do this with labor. But we're not just looking at them as labor anymore. We're looking as part of the team, part of the culture, and we're living and breathing that purpose. And just like we do at SimpleGrowth.
I'll give you a very specific example. So I was with a company the other day. They're a fertilization company out of the Southeast. And I was sitting at a lunch, and one of their technicians, just a guy who likes to spray things, and he was sitting and he was sat across the table from me, and he said, Dan, I want to tell you, I'm so proud. I did this, I can't remember this, 24,000 square foot house in 15 minutes. And it was like, I have a whole system and how I do it, and it's super fast and efficient. And this guy had a ton of personal and professional pride in the work that he did. And that changed from, and that business owner reported that his trucks were making 25% more per truck per week. And all that had changed is that we sat down with them and we included them in the vision of the company. And the next thing you know, he was out there, I'm the fastest on the team. And everyone's like, no, I'm the fastest, right? And they were like all bought in and committed, and they loved their job. And they said, hey man, I love my boss because he treats me like a human being. And I used to work at Applebee's, and like there's a whole culture shift, and human beings will always respond to this kind of respect and care and connection. deep human need to be part of something bigger than yourself. And I could go on for a long time. Mike, I know our time's almost up.
Yeah, I can't think enough. I know you've got a compressed schedule. Actually, I do too today. We actually are hopping on here in a little bit with the monthly masterminds webinar. So if you guys are watching this sounds of interest, feel free to book a call. It's sgscall.com to see if you actually qualify to join the masterminds or our Scale Plus group. But in addition, we've got a bit of urgency here. If this is something you want to do, every quarter we do a live event. So we've been to Shreveport, Louisiana. We've been to Dallas. We've been to Charlotte, North Carolina, all of which have had live shop tours. So not only do you get to go in and learn all these things, but then you can actually see them in action inside these multi-seven-figure businesses, interact with the business owners, their office staff, check out their equipment, how they operate, how they set up their yards, all of that to be said. We've got our next live event coming up in the beginning of August in Nashville, Tennessee. We've taken a different spin on this one because we found there's a lot of value in business owners being able to network with each other, not only during the teaching and we don't just teach this stuff, we actually workshop this stuff. This is where it's completely different. And we do have some fun events one night for team building with the group. What we've done is dedicated a whole day on this Nashville event where business owners literally can just network, have a good time, go golfing, see some things in Nashville. And we've rented out about 6 or 7 cabanas poolside, Dan, where we can hang out and have a good time and catch a little base tan.
And here's the truth. Like every time I share with people what we do and how we do it, especially I was chatting with a seasoned entrepreneur last night and he goes, where were you 20 years ago? Where were you 20 years ago when I was a brand new bright-eyed entrepreneur and I didn't really quite know what I was doing, but I was making it up as I went? Where were you then? And I mean, like, we're not trying to be egotistical or anything. We just have done it a lot of times and we've seen a lot of companies and we have this big heart to help companies make progress in that direction. And so like, I'm kind of like, you can go do it yourself. We want you to take these steps and run with them, man. If you're the type of person that doesn't need help or support or accountability, great. But if you do need help, support, and accountability, please let us support and help you. The cool part about our coaching is it's not theoretical. It's very practical and down to earth. All of our coaches currently are CEOs of lawn care companies, of really successful ones. And so you're sitting down across from somebody who's sitting in your same seat and you get the chance to connect with them and talk kind of fractional CEO style, CEO to CEO, and work through your business and kind of accelerate things. Again, it's you can do it on your own. It's just a lot harder and takes more time, and you end up making similar mistakes to what these guys have already been through. So if you're interested, if you're curious, we'd love to support you and serve you. If not, we don't care about you. No, okay. We love you. We care about you. But we would love to serve you however we can. And Mike, they can reach out to us through LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you're finding this.
Yep.
Feel free to find us, reach out, and we'd be happy to help. Or you can go to sgscall.com, sgs.call.com, and just get on the phone, and we can kind of walk you through and maybe evaluate where in these 6 steps you might see some opportunity.
Awesome, Dan. Can't thank you enough. And I will see you in a few minutes on the other call where, what are we talking about today? Just as a little teaser.
Yeah, we're talking about supercharging your leadership development. So leadership development is so important, but it's sometimes hard to get your fingers around. How do you actually go about it? And we have a very specific process, 4-step process of like, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Here's how you supercharge that leadership development.
I'm stoked. Can't wait to see it, Dan. Appreciate it. I'll see you in about 10 minutes with the Masterminds group live in our monthly webinar. And once again, if you want to see if this is the right fit for you or it could be helping your business, sgscall.com, and look forward to talking to you.
Thanks, Mike.